Big news! Boost Mobile is now sending experts nationwide to deliver and set up customers' new phones at home or work.
Wait, we're going on tour?
Not a tour. We're delivering and setting up customers' phones so it's easier to upgrade.
Let's get in the tour bus and hit the road.
No, not a tour bus. It's a regular car we use to deliver and set up customers' phones at home or work.
Are you a groupie on this tour?
We deliver and set up phones. It's not a tour.
Oh, you're definitely a groupie.
Introducing Store to Door. Switch and get a new device with expert setup and delivery wherever you're at.
Delivery available for select devices purchased at boostmobile.com.
You know what's wild? Most people are still overpaying for car insurance just because it's a pain to switch. That's why there's Jerry. Jerry's the only app that compares rates from over 50 insurers in minutes and helps you switch fast with no spam calls or hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Before you renew your car insurance policy, do yourself a favor. Download the Jerry app or head to jerry.ai/ACAST.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Scary. If you're new here, my name is Will, and each week I narrate your real-life paranormal experiences as well as cover some famous paranormal cases along the way. As always, before we get into this week's main episode, I need to say a special thank you to our new Patreon subscribers who are Elizabeth D, Leanne Aslan, Alex, Ali Kentop, Ed Chester, Chloe Truman, Louisanna, Carl McDowell, Michelle Desnoyer, Thomas Martin, Judy T, Geordie Jordan, Elizabeth Elson, and Lynn Simmons. Thank you so much for signing up to the show's Patreon, and if this is something you're interested in, you can find the link in this episode's show notes where you can gain access to ad-free main episodes as well as exclusive scary episodes. Before we begin, a brief note that this episode includes themes of domestic violence and alcohol misuse within a family environment. Please take care while listening if these topics are difficult for you. Support can be found in the episode's show notes. But now, let's get into our next paranormal encounter. My experience began around the age of 10. I grew up in a 2-storey semi-detached council house in the UK, home built in the 1970s. It was a pretty popular type of house for that time period. I lived with my parents. I was an only child, and our family would definitely have been classed as a low-income family. My father, when sober, had a few kind moments, but when life weighed on him, he grew pretty harsh and unpredictable, mainly towards me. I remember when he lost his job in the factory that he worked in. I was around 10 at that time. Soon after he lost his job, his temper worsened, probably because he was drinking more heavily than he usually was, and that seemed to be how he was coping with his unemployment. My mum worked in a local supermarket. She had a part-time shift. Mum is a very soft-spoken person, and she always used to try to keep the peace in the house. I used to try and copy her and try to calm Dad down, but she was the one that was able to restrain him. I was a pretty quiet kid at school. I had a few friends, but I never invited anyone over to the house. I was way too embarrassed. I was definitely afraid that Dad would get in one of his moods and embarrass me, and word would go back to school that my dad was a drunk, basically. I had to grow up pretty fast. I'd often come home and there would be an empty house. Mum would be working a later shift and Dad would say that he was out looking for work, but he was in the pub. When I look back now, I was definitely very lonely, but it's hard to process those feelings and emotions as a child. Not too long after Dad lost his job, I had a few strange things start to happen. One morning I woke up and I remember lying in bed, and it was pretty early in the morning, but the light was still coming in through the curtains. And I remember lying there awake, looking up at the ceiling, and I turned in the bed to lie on one side, and as I did, I saw what looked like a small dark shape dart along the floor near the foot of my bed. This was about the size of a cat or a dog. It felt to me like as if there was an animal like a cat or a dog in the room, but we didn't have any pets at that time. I turned on my bedside lamp and there was nothing in the room. My room was pretty small. It was big enough for a single bed. I could see all around it pretty easily. Couldn't hear anything. I think I convinced myself that it had to have been some trick of the light, and I went back to sleep. It wasn't a one-time occurrence. Over the next few months, I occasionally saw these dark, fast movements at the edge of my vision, always in my bedroom. Pretty much fleeting, dark masses, and the moment you'd turn your head, there was nothing there. It was enough to convince you that there was something in the room, and on a few occasions I'd get on my knees and look underneath the bed, behind the door, try to look around spots that maybe there was a rat or, something after getting into my room. But there was no indication that there was anything in the room. Plus there was never any sound when these dark masses moved. I used to see these shapes usually when I woke up or in the evening time if I was lying on my bed reading a book or listening to music. And I would never see them anywhere else in any of the other rooms in my house or at school. It was always in my bedroom. I did tell my parents about it, and my dad said that I was making up stuff and hit me. After that, I didn't mention it again. That was definitely the beginning of a series of things that I experienced over a number of years. Above my bedroom door was this rectangular glass panel, and its purpose was to let light in from the hallway or let light from the bedroom into the hallway. That glass panel often meant that I could see the glow of the landing light if it was left on. One night, I remember lying in the dark. The landing light had been turned off, and I began hearing this tapping noise, like somebody was tapping on the glass with their finger. My parents were asleep in the next room, and the sound that it made my skin crawl. It would come in spurts, and then it would stop, and then it would start again. I could never find the courage to open the door and investigate what the sound was. I do not know how that sound occurred, what was causing it. It was quite loud at times, and it was knocking or tapping of a finger on the glass panel. It's the only way I can explain what it sounded like. I remember as a teenager asking my mum if she would leave the hallway light on, and she agreed. And then Dad eventually argued about it and said that it was driving up the electricity bill, so it would be turned off. I don't know why, but it felt like that the glow from the landing light made me feel a little bit safer. With the things that I was experiencing, I definitely preferred that than lying in complete darkness. I think around the age of 12 or 13, the atmosphere in our home had grown a lot heavier. Dad was definitely drinking more frequently, and he'd have explosive bursts of anger, mainly shouting about stupid things. The volume on the TV, asking where he had left his tea, and saying the house was cold, then saying it was too hot. And during these times, a shove against the wall or a sharp slap weren't uncommon. I had learned to read the warning signs when he'd have flushed cheeks or he was slurring his words. I knew he was going to explode, so you'd stay pretty quiet. You'd try to become invisible. I'd shut myself in my bedroom and you'd listen for his footsteps coming up the stairs, meaning that he might go to sleep. It was definitely stressful for a child. I had mentioned previously that it was common for me to be alone in the house sometimes when I come home from school. It depended on the shift that my mum was working and whether Dad was still out looking for a job or in the pub or off somewhere that none of us knew. I remember one day coming home from school to an empty house. It must have been in autumn or winter time, because I remember it was kind of dark. It was dark enough that I had to flip on the light in the hallway whenever I came in the front door. I remember going to the kitchen to make a sandwich, and I was kind of halfway through making this sandwich and I heard my father's voice shouting from upstairs, calling me by name, and I pretty much reacted automatically and said yes. I didn't realise he was in the house. I didn't get a response back from him, but I knew better than to ignore him, so I straight away went up the stairs to their bedroom to see what he wanted. I opened the door to their bedroom and there was no one in the bedroom. There was no one in my bedroom. There was nobody in any other room in the house except for myself. I had definitely heard his voice. It was borderline angry. It was pretty unmistakable, but he was not in the house. I just remember going to the sitting room and turning on every single light in there and turning the television up really high to keep me company until my mum came home. I do remember saying it to her when she came home, but I don't think she thought that it was something strange in the house. I think she just thought that I imagined something that didn't actually happen. Looking back now, I feel like something was mimicking my father. It was trying to scare me or trying to get my attention. I don't remember how long of a gap in between that and the next thing happened, but it must have been about a year or two. And during that period, I still was experiencing some taps on the glass and seeing those moving shadows in my bedroom that were usually about a foot or two off the ground. I want to say I experienced that every couple of months. The weird voice phenomenon did return. One evening, I was about 14 or 15, and I heard the voice of my mum upstairs calling out, asking me, am I home? It was unmistakably my mother's voice, and for a split second I almost believed that it could possibly be her, and then I remembered she was in work. But of course, your brain thinks, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she is home. Maybe I don't know her timetable for this week. So I went upstairs to check, and the house was completely empty. there was nobody there other than me. Another time, I was about 16. By then, Dad and I barely spoke. He had drifted in and out of jobs during that time, and like I said, spent most of his spare time drinking, and our interactions usually ended with really tense silence or shouting matches. I was becoming stronger. I had developed more of my personality, and I knew that there was life outside of this house. One evening, I remember being in the kitchen, doing homework at the table. Mum was doing a night class to try improve her qualification, and Dad was out. I had been doing my homework for, I want to say, an hour or more. And without warning, I heard someone upstairs calling out my name. Very loud, very urgent. Again, it sounded like my father's voice. So I got up and went to the stairs and said, yeah, like I had mentioned, I knew better than not to reply. So I automatically started to go up the stairs. And when I reached the top of the landing, I noticed that my bedroom light was on and I could see that the door was open. I presumed that he was inside. So I looked around the door. There was nobody in my room, but what grabbed my attention was the light in the room was swaying wildly on its cord. The lampshade was just moving rapidly from side to side. It pretty much was like as if somebody had struck it really hard and it was swinging back and forth. The window was closed. There was no breeze. In my opinion, there was no reason at all for the light to be moving. I just remember going straight to the sitting room and staying down there until my mum would come home from her job. I remember her returning to the house very clearly, and I broke down and told her all the things that I had experienced and how I'd heard voices upstairs and how the light was moving on its own and the glass tapping and the weird shadows. She did look really concerned, and I just remember her hugging me and saying that I was really stressed. And she went upstairs, I presume, just to show that she didn't think I was crazy, and looked all around, and of course she found nothing. And after that, I think she just distracted me by talking about something else. I do remember feeling really angry at that point. I think I was angry because we were already dealing with a lot of stuff that Dad was creating, unnecessary stress, and then I was experiencing all this other stuff, and it made me feel like a freak. It made me feel like this was one other thing just to heap on top of the pile. Shortly after my 17th birthday, I had probably the most terrifying encounter of them all. I had woken up needing to go to the toilet, and it was early morning. It was beginning to get bright outside. The light was strong enough for it to be filtering through my curtains in my bedroom. So I get up, I go to the toilet, and I shuffle back towards my bedroom. For context, my bedroom's on the second floor. As I stepped into the bedroom, I immediately was drawn towards the window area, and there, against my closed window curtains, was the silhouette of a man. For a moment, I thought it might be my father hiding there, but the figure's proportions were wrong. It was terrifying. Someone or something was inside my bedroom, behind the curtain, and then it moved. And when I say it moved, it violently moved behind the curtain, so much so that the curtains swung rapidly side to side. They even rose slightly. I just remember the fabric flapping and the noise of the metal rings on the pole. It was the most terrifying experience I ever had in my life. After that, I remember staying downstairs until it got really bright outside, and eventually I got brave enough to go back up to the bedroom and pull back the curtains, still reeling over what happened earlier on. I moved out of my home that same year. I ended up moving in with my aunt. She didn't live too far away. I wanted to escape the whole cycle of this fear and abuse. My mum was upset, but she completely understood. And I'd visit her regularly. I kept in close contact with her. I still do. I never ended up moving back in there. Eventually my mum divorced him. And in June 2023, my dad died in that house. I never experienced any paranormal things since. From the moment I moved out, the tapping, shadows, voices, all of that stopped. I don't know if I'll ever know the truth of what happened or why it happened to me. I'm sure people would say that it was the brain creating these things as a response to the trauma, but what I experienced was very real. I've never heard voices like that weren't there since. I haven't experienced any of the strange things that I experienced. To me, it felt like something latched on to the situation and enjoyed it, was feeding off it, and was trying to scare me or pressurize me in some type of way. That's just my personal take on it. Thank you to Jake for sending in his personal experience. And just a side note that names have been changed for obvious reasons. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. And don't forget, if you have your own personal paranormal encounter that you'd like me to narrate on the show, you can send it to scaryaparanormalpodcast@gmail.com. One tip I will say, if you are sending in your experience, is to take your time. Try to be as detailed as possible, and remember, there's no rush. Thank you for listening, and join me next time for another episode of Scary.
ClickUp just solved AI's biggest problem, and it's saving 4 million teams from productivity loss every day. Unlike ChatGPT and other AI tools, ClickUp converges all your work into one platform, so your AI super agents have full context to prioritize tasks, execute workflows, and draft documents instantly. Teams using ClickUp finish work 30% faster and cut meetings in half. Try ClickUp for free today and get 15% off AI upgrades at clickup.com/podcast. That's CLICKUP.com/podcast.
Tired of your car insurance rate going up even with a clean driving record? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/ACAST today.
Discover a legacy of excellence in the heart of Washington, D.C. At the Catholic University of America, where more than 130 years of graduate education meet innovation and purpose. Choose from over 100 graduate programs, including business, engineering, nursing, and public policy, all led by world-class faculty. Gain the skills, connections, and confidence to lead in your field. It's time to elevate your future. Learn more at catholic.edu/graduate.
ClickUp just solved AI's biggest problem, and it's saving 4 million teams from productivity loss every day. Unlike ChatGPT and other AI tools, ClickUp converges all your work into one platform, so your AI super agents have full context to prioritize tasks, execute workflows, and draft documents instantly. Teams using ClickUp finish work 30% faster and cut meetings in half. Try ClickUp for free today and get 15% off AI upgrades at clickup.com/podcast. That's CLICKUP.com/podcast.
Youth mental health is a complex challenge that requires comprehensive solutions. We must strengthen after-school programs. We must make digital literacy tools available in our schools. We must work with mental health professionals to support children. And we must empower mentors, educators, and parents to keep kids happy. Learn more about our commitment to finding lasting solutions at empowerourfuturecoalition.com/solutions. Paid for by the Coalition to Empower Our Future.
Discover a legacy of excellence in the heart of Washington, D.C. At the Catholic University of America, where more than 130 years of graduate education meet innovation and purpose. Choose from over 100 graduate programs, including business, engineering, nursing, and public policy, all led by world-class faculty. Gain the skills, connections, and confidence to lead in your field. It's time to elevate your future. Learn more at catholic.edu/graduate.